All right, I'm super excited to get started. Again, if you have questions, use the Q&A function and we'll get to them as soon as we can and through as many as we can. First question I'm going to throw to you, Dubs. How do you and your team come up with a goal and create a plan to achieve it?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of my favorite things to do. I think it's a little bit more intricate than some people think. Like a lot of times people just throw out, I want to be the conference leading scorer, or I want to have a save percentage of 75%, and they just throw out numbers. But a lot of what we do um, is trying to create some type of mental mind map. So we've done this with a few players. And we definitely did it with a rising senior last year who her goal was to be an impact player, which is pretty gray and vague. So the first question I asked her is, why is that important to you and what does that look like? And that's kind of what we try to do, is constantly ask what that looks like or why it's important, because without having, your heart behind it and the why of everything, it's pretty hard to go after a goal. If you're not dedicated to it, it's going to set you up for some struggles later on that you might not be able to get past. Um, so that's definitely something that we do first, is understand the why, and what that looks like to them, because an impact player to me could look completely different than it does to someone else. So asking those two questions to start, for sure. And then from there, the more we ask those questions, we kind of get to the root of it. And we stick to things that have a realistic timetable. Someone who didn't play at all to then jump to say, I want to play 30 minutes every game is, a pretty drastic jump. But then how do we kind of realistically give a timetable to that? So making sure that things are realistic, they have a timetable, and they're not gray. Like I said, a lot of times these gray areas leave interpretation up to different people. So we continuously make sure that it's a black and white and a yes or a no. So did I achieve this? Did I not? Did I do step one or did I not? Because if there's any kind of, or maybe, it leaves it open to interpretation and doesn't really put you on the path towards achieving that goal. So just to kind of recap that little long-winded answer, would be one, again, to ask why it's important, to ask what that looks like, make sure there's a timetable that's realistic, and make sure that it's not gray and it can be answered with a simple yes or no.
Who's up next?
So, Vic, I would love to hear if your team does anything different or any overlap with what Dubs does.
Yeah, I definitely emphasize the what's your why as a starting point. It's the most important question to ask. Why it's relevant, why it matters to you. And I'm a big believer that you start with your end in mind, that what you want to look like is, whether it's as a player, as a teammate, as a runner, a specific skill, whatever it is that you're working towards, both on a on a smaller level or even larger. Know that end goal, and then you work backwards, and you can actually build an action plan, so that the goals then become like steps on your action plan, and they're things that you can control. They're more performance based than outcome based. Because if you have the right end and you build the right action plan, then you can almost forget about that end of what you want to become, because the steps that you can take on a day-to-day basis are going to lead you there. So I think that in like high pressure environments, we sometimes get, deceived into just focusing on results, when I really believe that your mindset drives your behaviors and your behaviors drive your results. And the things that you can control are your behaviors and your mindset about things. And so trying to kind of reframe the conversation, have that end, and then almost forget about it once you've planned backwards. I will say one thing that we did as a team this year to really try to help each other invest in each other's success was create weekly goal buddies, where they would come up with kind of a short-term bite-size goal on the field, off the field, with a partner. And at the end of the week, they'd circle back and actually exchange goal cards to then keep a record, a copy of their goals for the course of the season, week by week. But then also 12 different teammates they ended up with their goals too. So showing that, especially when you're a part of a team and playing a sport like field hockey, you can invest in each other's success and use each other to help, motivating and supporting and empowering each other to achieve what each individual player wants to.
Coach Victor, could you explain a little bit the difference and maybe give like a concrete example, especially for our younger players? What's the difference between, a performance goal and an outcome goal, and how you work with your athletes on that?
Sure. It's funny, like, ask the question like, hey, what's a goal for this game? And very often we want to win. It's like, okay, that's awesome. That's an outcome.
Of course. Yes.
And how are we going to get there is the real question. And so that's taking an outcome, winning, and maybe your process goal, your performance goal to get there might be, we want to win, a majority of 50-50 balls. We want to complete 70% of our passes. We want to, whenever we're inside the attacking 25, we want to play a ball into the circle, whatever it might be, but they're actionable things that are way more in your control than a larger outcome, which so many factors go into it. It could also be even what Dubs was talking about of, wanting to be an impact player. I love that question. Like, what does that mean to you, so that you get your definitions straight? And then maybe becoming an impact player is, going out and hitting 100 balls before practice every day to be more consistent at a skill. Well, that's now something that is performance-based and actionable for you that will lead you to that outcome.
Awesome. Thank you. Jess, I'm sure a lot of people would love to know what your goal setting really system is, as somebody who's kind of reached the pinnacle of hockey in the US. So I'd love to hear what how you set a goal and then create a plan to follow through on it.
Yeah, so like many kids, I don't know, not many kids, but I didn't play field hockey when I was a kid. I picked up a stick when I was 13 years old. So my dream as a young kid was to be on the U.S. women's soccer team. I wanted to be, I saw Brandy Chastity, or I'm not sure if that's her last name, but, I remember that moment with the Team USA for soccer really, really having great success. So I was like, I want to be the world's best goalkeeper in soccer. Hope so. Always looked up to her and Abby Wambach. But obviously at 13, that kind of changed. And I then fell in love with field hockey. And so setting a goal now for field hockey is, of course, I wanted to be on Team USA and I wanted to play for Syracuse University. But like in upstate New York, there isn't a lot of options for club or the futures program. So now it was like, how can I succeed and reach this goal of playing for Syracuse, playing for my dream school when I don't have club? I'm not in the futures program. I'm a no name to this program. And so I started attending Syracuse University clinics, and I got a poster, and I remember hanging that poster on the wall. So in high school, what I used is visual imagery. I'm a big fan of goal setting boards. So you set a picture up and you look at it and you remind yourself why you're doing it. Exactly like similar to what the other coaches are saying. It's their why. And I remember training and like I had a Syracuse shirt on and just trying to push myself because I knew that I wanted to play for Syracuse. And thankfully, I found my way to Syracuse and played there. And that's when I was introduced to a personal development plan, which I highly recommend everyone fills out. So the personal development plan, it's you put my dream in 5 years and then your dream for the future. And then what your predicted GPA is, what's my strength and weaknesses technically, tactically, physically, mentally, what's your major, what's your strength. And I really love that because that's measurable. You write that out, and then in 3 months, you go back and look at that. Did I complete those goals? Did I not? Especially GPA in school settings right now. Everyone's doing virtual or online class. You can go back and look at your grades, right? Did I accomplish that? But also in the strength setting and weaknesses. I know in college, one of my weaknesses was my kicking. I'm a goalkeeper, so kicking with my left foot. So in that spring season, I'm going there and I'm training, really practicing with my left foot. And then obviously after Syracuse, I had the dream to play for the U.S. team. You guys can't tell anyone this, but like I had posters of Jackie Briggs on my wall in high school. And I really, really looked up to her and I watched Jackie play and I was learning from her and just seeing what could I add to my skill set. And so now on the U.S. team, I had a chance to try out for the U.S. team and I really started focusing. This is my ultimate goal. So it was focusing on my sleep, nutrition, running, fitness, and really taking the elite athlete lifestyle because it was my goal. And the huge thing that I say, similar to the other coaches, is it has to be your goal. It can't be your family's goal. It can't be your coach's goal. It can't be your teammates' goal. It has to be your goal, because when it comes to the fitness days, you're the one on the line. When it comes to a game, you're the one playing. And I think that's really the major thing for me with goal setting, is how you're going to achieve it is if you really want it. You have to have the passion, the growth mindset, and know it's going to be a bumpy road. Not always going to be, this is a team saying on the U.S. team, rainbows and butterflies. You're going to have those bumps, but really asking for feedback, asking your coaches, teammates for feedback. That's what on the U.S. team, we're at that level, and I have a goalie coach. He gives me personal feedback. So my goal obviously is to be the best goalkeeper in the world. And how I learn is video. Video is amazing right now. Technology for a young athlete, you set up a video camera, you watch yourself sweep, hit, maybe want to learn a new skill. There's so many skills right now online. You can watch. So many coaches right now are putting up stuff. So making sure that you're going out and practice and set your goal. Maybe it's a little goal, but make it achievable and really focus on that.
So I have a question too for you, Jess. So your goals are big and exciting. And I think something I was wondering about, when you are making a goal that's big, you say yes to a lot of things, but you have to say no to certain things in order to say yes to something. So, for a lot of our younger athletes, like they're in the beginning of this phase. So what sort of things, when you decided you wanted to be this kind of athlete, did you have to say no to?
So the things that I had to say no to was I'm trying to think, like staying up late. I put sports in school first and friends, but it also did help to surround myself with people that had the same goals and enjoyed the sport as much as I did. So they enjoyed going out and hitting the field hockey ball for an hour versus going and sitting at a pizza buffet for an hour. There's a little difference, but especially at a young age, I think it's surrounding yourself with people that have the same goals in mind. I feel like if you get caught with the wrong group, it can lead you to a negative place. But surround yourself with positive people, and I'm trying to think of that. I pretty much, you have people that want the best for you and choose the best for you.
That's awesome.
Awesome. As you just said, Jess, it's not always rainbows and butterflies. You are going to hit bumps in the road. So I would love to hear how you adjust when you do hit those bumps in the road. And I know specifically that the U.S. team has hit a couple roadblocks the last 9 months. So anything you can share from that journey as well.
Yeah. So, my career has been up and down and up and down. And I can tell you I've been left on more trips than I've probably been on. I failed fitness tests. I've not been selected for games. I've sat on the bench. But with all that, it helps me become a better athlete. The downs can be like really, really down, especially with everything that's happening right now. And then exactly in the last 9 months have been really hard if you follow the USA team with everything that's happening. But it's really learning from those mistakes. And a big thing that I'm not sure who said it, but when these things happen, I really ask myself, what can I do more? And why, instead of why not me? That was a huge mindset change. Is the first few years I found myself being like, why not me? And then I saw this quote of asking, what can I do more? Especially in this top level, or even for a high school level. If you're not getting selected for things, there's a reason why. So search for that why and try to find that why. And it's really easy to blame people and point fingers, but it really shows if you're growing in the failure, if you're asking why, or if you're like trying to become better. Use those as fuel, and you use it as fuel to get better. I know through all my negatives, it's really easy. I could walk away at any moment, but I want to become better and I want to push myself.
Awesome. Thank you. Vic, is there any framework or like tools that your team uses, your program uses when you hit those bumps in the road?
Well, I think it's one of the most beautiful and frustrating things about sport is that like you can always get better. And Jess is at the pinnacle of our sport right now, so maybe she disagrees that there's always something more to do, right? And you're done. And so I think like the roadblocks and the bumps, like that is the life that we've chosen. in athletics in a lot of ways. And especially in a time of uncertainty right now, I think some of that uncertainty and acknowledging that some days are going to be hard and some days you're not going to be feeling your best. And some days you're wondering, like, what am I training for? That ends up happening in a fall season too, that there are practices that you just weren't at your best, or a game where you just can't, it's like your stick has a hole in it, you can't stop a ball. And the question becomes, what next? How do you respond? And a response is in your control. I think that says way more about someone, person, athlete than hitting a speed bump or a roadblock, because we all do it. I remember when I was first learning to drive, and I'm still a like a white knuckle driver in my 97 Corolla here, but when you look too short at the road in front of you and you're trying to, stay in your lane on the high, you end up like swerving back and forth and you're getting pulled in these different directions. And so going back even to the first question and what Dubs was talking about with knowing your why and having that destination in mind, I think it also helps you to have a little bit of a longer gaze of like what you're actually working towards in the goal. And so that roadblocks and speed bumps, you can make little corrections and adjustments. When you hit that first obstacle, it doesn't mean you need to overcorrect or that long-term destination was wrong. So what are some small things that you can change that, again, are going to be a little bit more actionable if there was a real strong why for that destination in mind? And then you're not getting pulled in so many different directions so much as just making little adjustments to be on that best path forward.
So I have a question. I mean, we can go to Dubs as well. Like when you hit these roadblocks, right? And we're having, Jess was talking about those down moments, right? Or when you don't get selected, or someone asked a question of like preseason nerves, like you are feeling your feelings, right? Like how do you handle that, right? And inevitably, like people are having a lot of feelings right now, for good and for bad. Because things have changed and there have been roadblocks and big shifts. So what's the role of dealing with those emotions? I guess we can start with, do we want to start with Jess? I guess you could talk about like a time you didn't get picked up to travel, or a time you sat on the bench. Like how did that feel and how did you work through that?
Yeah, I think just as any athlete, it's never fun to sit on the bench, but it's also accepting your role during that time. Is you can sit on the bench and be negative and be mean, or you can be there to support your teammates, because you don't always want to be on the bench. And when you're not on the bench, you want them to support you like you supported them. And that is really, really important to be a good teammate and make sure that you're helping each other through a tough time. Like right now in preseason, right? Preseason is really tough. I still get runner's anxiety whenever we have the 30-15 test. I know I'm going to pass it, but I still get nervous, right? And that's okay to accept those nerves and really accept them and know that you did everything to prepare for this moment. And then if you didn't, you have to also accept that reality is right now, right? We can't go to the gym, but there's free running outside. So if you're already getting nervous about maybe fitness or anything, you can go outside and run and push yourself. I'm a big fan of the Peloton app. I'm not sure if I can say that, but right now the Peloton app is really keeping me motivated. And yes, so not getting selected for games, it's part of the process. Obviously, I would love to be selected and be in cage every game. That's what I train for day in and day out. But like I said, you have to be a good teammate, and there's a reason you're not being selected. So let's grow from that and become better and try to keep positive, because it's really easy to beat yourself up and just pat yourself on the back and tell yourself you're doing a good job, but let's push it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback off of what Jess just said, I mean, I was a goalkeeper as well. And what we sometimes try to do is think about it from that point of view. Like the only way if you're not selected to start or whatnot, the only way you're getting in is if your teammate does poorly, or if, by chance, which doesn't, if you're winning 11-0. So there's days where, yeah, like Victor was trying to say earlier, like there's things that are in your control. And at that moment, it's no longer in your control. You either did everything you could, like Jess said, and you feel good about that, and you you're focused on the process. That's been a lot of what we've been talking about. Or you self-reflect and realize, did I do everything I could? And instead of, like Jess said, thinking, why not me? Think, what can I do today? What can I control today? Because that's also like the life of a coach. We have no control over what's happening during the game as much as we may like to pretend to. We have no control over what's going to end up happening. We have to trust that the training and the mentality and the mindset, we've done everything we could to prepare our student athletes, and they've done everything they can prepare to perform. And you have to rely on that. And if we didn't, then we can go back to the drawing board. But, you don't lose one game and then think the season's over. I'm just going to lose every game from here on out. Like, you don't view a goal and think that it set you back a little bit. Now, all of a sudden you can't ever achieve a goal again. That's the entire point, is that it's process related. Like Vic and Jess have been saying, if you know your why, I want to do this because, well, you just don't let one thing knock you down from that. You have to self-reflect on it and think, maybe I just need to adjust a little bit or view it a little bit differently. But yeah, I mean, I've had 2 different experiences. I didn't start a collegiate field hockey game in my entire life. But then I started the majority of my lacrosse career in college. So I kind of had both views of it from both sides. And there's nothing worse than thinking, is someone on the bench right now thinking, I can't believe she's in. You would never want someone to be thinking that about you. So why would you ever think that about someone else or about your own goal setting? Like, there's no need to beat yourself up for hitting a roadblock. I'm kind of jumping into the answer to my own question that was next at this point. So sorry, Vic, if you were going to jump in, please feel free to piggyback when I'm done. But yeah, I mean, I think like acknowledging that is half the battle. Like, I've hit a roadblock. Here's what I've done to this point, or here's maybe what I could adjust moving forward. And to me, that's all about emotional intelligence. And that's something that we really preach in our program a lot. We do a lot of mindful work. People sometimes confuse mindfulness with meditation. That's not what it is. It's part of it. Like Jess said, visualization is a part of it. There's so many facets to the mindfulness piece as a whole, but we do a lot of mental work to make sure that we are able to handle setbacks and we're able to think clearly about the things that we're doing. We dedicate multiple days a week to making sure that we're staying on top of it. Right now we do have a weekly meditation that will change to twice a week soon, but that is one piece of it. But we don't just say like, are you meditating? You can easily be mindful while you're walking, while you're cooking, while you're driving. There's so many things that you can do to increase your own personal emotional intelligence, which to me is how you then grow further, because you can't manage things that happen externally if you can't manage things that are happening to you internally. So to me, that's step number 1. And as I'm sure Jess can attest to, being a goalkeeper, it's nothing but mind games the entire time. You could see one shot the entire game and lose, and it could look like it's your fault. So, one thing that we've been trying to do is just talk about, writing your story, and every day it's a page in your story. And sometimes you have to rip that page out and try again, but that doesn't mean that you then rip every page out before that. You just, rip that one out and then do better moving forward. And I just saw something the other day, which I've heard it before, but the quote really hit home with me. And it was that the last mile is the least crowded. And to me, that really hit home with me, because it's very, very easy to sit down and say you want to do something, but it's very difficult for it to come to fruition. And to me, it's the moment when you hit a setback. You choose, does it propel you forward or does it knock you down for good? And to me, that's the defining moment. Like Victor said, your response, like that defines who you are and how badly you wanted it, is how you're, willing to reflect and move forward.
Jess, so there was a question that somebody asked about, that made me think about when you were talking about, how do I lose those first year of high school nerves? There are so many great players and I'm a little bit scared. Maybe we can start with Victor on that, but what you were just saying made me think so much about that last mile is crowded. And so I think for those freshmen coming in, part of the nerves is accepting it, you were saying, but also realizing like the fact that you're there is pretty awesome, right? So like in a high school environment, how many fellow ninth graders are trying out for a varsity sport in preseason before anybody else shows up. So it's acknowledging the whole story, and that, you know, having these feelings of nervousness aren't bad. And they also mean that you're doing something that scares you and makes you grow. So I don't know if Vic has anything to add to that, of the nerves that people feel, or maybe the nerves your incoming freshmen feel in college.
Yeah. And I know we were talking about this a little bit, Chrissy, but I think like a little, you know, having nerves means that you care, right? If you're not nervous at all, even if you have confidence in there, I feel like that desire to perform and to be at your best creates at least a little bit of a little bit of those butterflies and those nerves. So we tell our first years, and that's not a bad thing. Like, that doesn't scare me at all as a coach. I think it takes like learning to live with that feeling and to be okay with that feeling, and to just, again, acknowledge that it exists, and it might not be like one thing that you can say or do to resolve it, but when you know what it's coming from and where it's coming from, I think it's a lot easier to then perform with it. The one other piece I wanted to add to what Dubs was saying is, I think it's super important that at least part of your why has nothing to do with playing time and on-field role. I think if what you've thought about, you know, whether it's, you know, trying out for preseason or what you want your role on the team to be is only about minutes, that's something that again becomes a little bit outside of your control on a day-to-day basis, and it is a lot easier than when you do hit a stumbling block to feel that demotivation, because that's been the entire focus. Yeah, it's more fun to be on the field. Like, I hear ya, and I'd be scared if someone didn't want to be playing at all. And I think there's also more to it, whether it's you're focused on your growth, whether it's what it means to be a great teammate, whether it's you're trying to change the culture of, you know, your program or the athletic department in your school, whatever it is, there's no right answer. Different things are going to be motivating to different people. In college, you are going to play about, if you played on the field every minute of every game, 72 hours. Okay. You're going to invest over 1,600 hours of training, athletic training time, lifting, etc. And I would question the investment of that many hours if it's only about the 72 on the field. So find those other whys. And I think then, even as you're going into preseason and getting started, like, there are positive things that you're going to get out of this experience, regardless of what your on-field role becomes or what team that you make. And I think that's actually then a little bit liberating going into the tryout, that you know you're a part of this and there are going to be great things that come from it. And then the playing time and the role on the team, like, that's just a cherry on top.
Awesome. So we have a really good question that came from the audience. There's two questions, but this first one is, they play with their sister and they're both goalies, and she's going to be a senior and she's going to be a sophomore. And they're the two oldest goalies on the team. And if she wants to play on varsity and get more time in the cage, she needs to be better. And she's wondering how they can do that without making her feel bad or to get too competitive with each other. Mom, you're a saint is my first response to that. Two goalies in your house. But does anybody have a response to that? How do they do it without making each other feel bad or get too competitive? Jesse,
Yeah, Jess, do you want to go? Yeah, go ahead.
See, I'm a twin, and we were both goalkeepers. My twin was a soccer goalkeeper, and I was a field hockey goalkeeper, and we were always trying to be better than each other. So it actually pushed the level of standard even higher, because yeah, like, you guys are going to be competitive as sisters, but you're also going to be able to push yourselves to be better. So you guys, yes, feelings might get hurt, but think about how much fun sister rivalry is. Like, you guys are going to be able to compete and push each other. And I mean, I always loved competing with my sister to see who could have a better save percentage. That was always really fun. But I mean, for the same position, I think if you want it, you have to go get it. And if it is your sister, but it's friendly competition, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely tough. You know, I don't have a twin and I can't imagine competing. I mean, my brother and I are almost Irish twins, so we constantly went at it. But my sophomore year, we had a transfer come in actually. And she came from a Division I program that was phenomenal. And at that point, I kind of was, you know, bummed for myself, but also we had a conversation and we sat down of, like, look, like, what do we want the team to accomplish? Like, at first, you know, it's like a little bit of human nature to be a little bit resentful and think like, oh, like, this is why I came here. I've worked so hard. I've done all these things. And I thought that I was going to be, you know, the starting goalkeeper. This is what I thought was going to happen for me. And once I reflected on, you know, okay, this is like pretty selfish of me to think about this over the summer before we get here. How can the two of us push each other to be better for the team? Like, if I'm being my best and she's being her best, then we're making our attackers better and we're scoring more goals in practice or in games. So how can the two of us, instead of working against each other, work together to then make the team better? How can we make our defense feel better about these things? And that conversation, I will never forget it. You know, we didn't have it until we were, I think, juniors, the end of our junior year, but that just made our relationship so much better. I graduated from college in 2008. She's still one of my best friends to this day. Just saw her earlier today on Zoom in her yoga class that she teaches. So we are still best of friends. And to me, that was a turning point in our relationship, because we were honest about this. Like, look, we're against each other, but like, not really, because I'm trying to be my best and you're trying to be your best. And if your best is better than mine on game day, then I'm just hoping that it's the best for the team. And that's really all you can do. And I think obviously this is tough because it's a sister, but at the end of the day, if you're both on the same team, you want the team to win. And you want the best for your sister. And if that's the case, and you've done everything you both can, like Victor's been saying, and like we've been saying in general, then it's out of your control. So when Jess got selected or didn't get selected, she didn't say, I would like to select myself today, or I would like to not select myself. Someone else did that. So if it happens to be that the coach selects one over the other, it's not that that means that person's better all the time. It could be the surface you're playing on, the team you're playing against, the defense you have in front of you. I mean, there's so many factors that can go into why decisions are made, especially with goalkeeping, that it's not, this is really hard to digest, and it's going to sound much harsher than I mean it. But it's not about you. It's about who's best in that moment. And if you've given your best, like Jess said, then you can feel proud about that. But yeah, it could be fun. Like, it really elevated our relationship, I think. And that's something to look forward to. Like, that's a bond the two of you have that not many people have. Like, it is, we are on an island out here. Like, goalie land is a special, special place. We've got special things going on in our head. But you know, we're a special breed. And now you've got that relationship that not really anybody else can say. So instead of viewing it as, you know, going against each other, how can the two of you be leaders for your team and build everybody up?
I love that. It is, I mean, it's so hard to balance your competitive aspirations with your relationships with other teammates and what's best overall for the team. And I think that was a really good way that you handled it, and a really good lesson we can take from it. I would like to know from each of you if there's a high school or other athlete on the call right now who is really struggling with, how do I make a goal and follow through when I don't know what the next 3 months looks like? What advice would you give them if they're not sure if they're going to be able to train over the summer, if they're going to have a full preseason, they don't even know what their fall season is going to look like? Where can you point them, and what would your advice for them be? Vic, would you want to start us off?
Sure. I do think it again, it starts with that why, and building backwards. What is that goal? And that at some point we're going to be, you know, back to playing hockey, and hopefully it's in the fall. Hopefully it's normal starting point. And so to build that way, in terms of the action plan. And I think now more than ever, having like short chunk, maybe week by week assessments and metrics of where you are on that process, so that you do have a little bit more of that adaptability in a state of uncertainty. I do think to some extent it's also finding like the intrinsic benefit of the training and what you're doing. Like, why is what you're doing in and of itself good, regardless of an end goal and a destination? And so if it's training for preseason, whether it's stick work or fitness, how does improving on its own, how is that helping you? Why is that something that you would want to do and is going to be good for you regardless of when you get to use it? I think that way, again, it becomes a little bit more process, tangible, and less like extrinsic in terms of why you're doing the preparation pieces that go into, again, let's be honest, the really fun thing, which is playing the game. Creativity now too. Like one of the mottos we talk about a lot is like find a solution rather than an excuse. So so Jess was talking about whether it's the Peloton app or running outside is free, or I mean, there are so many things on Instagram now where, you know, you get your dog and, you know, you do a flat on the floor, like a chest press, you know, whatever it is. And you can end up having some fun that way. One of the things that we have been talking about as a group is finding positives and gratitude, even in uncertainty and in sadness, and using ands rather than either ors or buts. That I want to train for something, but it's uncertain. Now says the uncertainty is more important than what you're training for. If it's I'm training for something and it's uncertain, you acknowledge the reality. And I think the mindset is much more positive about being solution oriented versus the obstacle being, it's a challenge, not an inhibitor or a detriment to what you're trying to do.
Awesome. Dubs, would you want to take a stab at what your advice would be?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to sound, I have a very different view of this. I've spoken to Chrissy about this before. And maybe this is because of the whole prioritizing mindfulness in my own life. But we have actually really not spoken about this as like a quarantine or something that's like, we don't talk about quarantine at all. We don't say we're in quarantine or we're in like the coronavirus or this or that. Like, we have reframed this period as the pre-training period. So like we refer to the summer as summer training. So for us, this is pre-training. So we've really stuck with that verbiage. But in general, for me, like, life is always uncertain. So like, I could set a goal of whatever, or I could want to be X, Y, and Z, or want to achieve this. But to me, like, that is the whole point, is that everything is always uncertain. So like, you could get injured tomorrow and your future is uncertain. You could move because a parent gets a new job and then your future is uncertain. So to me, every single day there are things that are uncertain. We know nothing about tomorrow, besides the fact that there will be a tomorrow. So right now, like, to me, this isn't any different than what we normally try to focus on, that we could do all of these things to prepare our goals and, you know, what we want to have in mind. But for me, we're taking it one day at a time, because we have to be in the pre-training phase today. Like, we have to be on Thursday, May 14th, because I have no idea what Friday, May 15th is going to look like. Like, I do have plans for tomorrow. Like, I know exactly what I'm doing, but like, in general, everything is always uncertain. So for me, we try to just kind of focus on the one day at a time. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but this has really brought me back to, like, I never know what's going to happen. So why is this any different than any other time period? At the end of May, we're getting ready for exams next week. Like, I don't know what's going to happen between now and when we come back in the fall. Is someone going to transfer? Is someone going to get injured? Is someone, you know, there's so many things that could happen between now and then that we don't really view it any differently. And for us, like, we have 4 pieces of our foundation, and performance on game day and like strength and conditioning are only one small part of that. So like our big pitch, which is not really a pitch, is the truth. Like there's 365 days in a year, and we're maybe, like Victor said, maybe playing 20 games in a season. So that's 20 days. So what are we doing on the other 345 to actually, you know, be useful and to make an impact and to be, you know, the best version of ourselves? So for me, like if we're being intentional about what we're doing once a day towards what we have in mind, it's no different than any other time of the year. Getting a little rosy in the cheeks because I get passionate about this subject, that like we never know. So like, why not just make the most out of what we have right now? Because this is no different. Like, yeah, it may be pushed back longer than we think or shorter than we think, but it will come back again. And we will be in the spot again, like Victor said. But to me, it doesn't change. So we just change the verbiage of pre-training instead of quarantine. And yeah, just try to focus on that because the uncertainty is always present. Now it's just shoved in our face every day. So how do we reframe it to make it look different?
Yeah, I love that reframing. That's a really good way to look at it because it's true. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We usually just have this illusion that our circle of control is this big, when in reality, our circle of control is this big. Jess, any advice you would give to someone who's trying to set and train towards a goal right now?
And Jess, surprise, surprise, we have another goalie question. I think the
Goalies.
goalies know what's up.
Goalies on the call.
Goalies have very goalies are universal, but they
Goalies.
have some specific goalie questions.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like a lot of the athletes right now, I'm in the same situation they are. I don't have a place to train. I don't have a place to work out. I miss my teammates. I miss suiting up. Some days I lack motivation. That's a reality. Some days I have good days. Some days I have bad days. And it's really important right now that you listen to your body, you listen to your mind, and accept that like not every day is going to be a good day. And that's when I might say, I need someone, you know, I need to lean on someone to get me through this workout today. And like a big thing that I've been trying to do lately with my workouts is just saying I get to do this versus I have to do this. It's just a little phrase, right? It's such a little phrase. But I know I've injured teammates, people in my life that are injured that can't do the things that we're doing today. And especially if you're going towards a goal, you get to do this. You can do it right now. And like people, if you like everyone's saying, like if you get injured, you don't know, you might get injured tomorrow. But did you take advantage of the day today that you had, that you weren't injured? And I think right now it comes down to that. If you have a goal, go after it right now, right? Take 20 minutes, take 2 hours of your day. And something that we've been trying to focus on with the national team is setting a schedule. Is just because everything is so uncertain in your life right now. Our coaches have been really pushing, set a schedule, follow that schedule, and check it off. So that by maybe like Friday, you didn't do your homework and you didn't do a run, and now you have to do that all at once. And yeah, so then anxiety comes, and you can't control what's going to happen in these next few months, but you can control the day to day. Exactly what Deb said.
Awesome. So I want to make sure we get to the questions that that these awesome athletes ask. So the first one is, we'll get to the goalie question next. Maybe we'll just have a goalie specific session in the future because goalies have very specific things, which is sometimes it's easier for players to overwork themselves. What are some signs that it's time to step back for a minute? And what do you do then? So who wants to take that one? Jess, you want to go?
Yeah. I think it's really easy to find yourself in a time like this overworking. And that's why I said, listen to your body, listen to your mind. If you're overworking, take a day off. It's okay to rest. That's one thing you have to do is you have to learn to rest. As I know when I went to college, I thought I could work out 7 days a week and push my body. I want to be the best, right? I want to be the greatest athlete I can be. But if you're doing that, you're actually going to put more stress on your body and you're going to cause more harm and cause injury. So you have to listen to your body. And maybe it's taking an online yoga class a day and then taking a day off and making sure you're hydrating and eating. Overworking, you don't want to do that because you don't want to end up with a nasty injury and be out for 7-8 months. Listen to your body.
So our goalie question, and then we have a recruiting question too, is that where is this goalie question? So she's a goalie, and this past season she's had trouble with the defense getting mad when she was directing them during a game and giving directions to a game. They would talk back or get upset with me. I've also seen this situation before. And I'm wondering how to handle and be able to give good feedback without them getting upset and still work together as a team. Let me just say this could be its own webinar, but everyone's like, yes, team communication. But we have 5 minutes left. So why don't we throw it to Vic? How would you handle this situation, or have you handled a situation?
Well, let's hear from the goalies first, right? They're the ones. I'm sure it's happened to them directly in pad. So I'd be curious what the Jesses have to say.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely happened at every level as a player in, middle school, whatever, especially if you've got maybe like an underclassman in goal and upperclassmen in front of them. That can often also be a point of just kind of like tipping people over the edge. But I mean, I think this is, I mean, I don't know if emotional intelligence is too loaded for a middle school team. Like it probably is. But for me, like I'm just a very transparent person. Like I'll just say, hey, look, my communication style, like I think people assume because I'm very loud, very like demanding, very boisterous, that I enjoy conflict, but it's actually the least favorite thing about my job. But I just acknowledge that, hey, my job as a goalkeeper is to command. So when I'm commanding you, I'm not yelling at you, I'm talking to you, or I'm yelling to you so you can hear me. It's not at, it's to. And I think just also maybe asking them like, hey, look, number one, like when we're in between the lines, like it's all about getting it done in the moment. When we're outside the 4 corners, like, hey, let's sit down and talk about like, hey, maybe this came off the wrong way, or how would you prefer to receive information? Great, but that might not be possible in the heat of the moment. Like, I'll talk to you that way every single time off the field, but while we're in between the lines, this is my communication style, and it may not be your preferred method of hearing it, but at the same point, like, I don't have time to process through every defender's way of receiving information. Making them aware of how you, I think, send information is important so they can know that what's the root of why I'm saying this. Like, I'm saying this because we need to get the job done. I don't have time to I'm not being mean. I don't have time to think about emotions right now. Like, I'm just trying to get the ball out and like get somebody on a player. So yeah, I think just having those open conversations off the field are helpful so people can know the goal is at the same at the end of the day, but hear what I'm saying, not how I'm saying it.
Jess, is there a way that you were talking about communicating to them, is there a way that you could maybe ask them too, like how do they prefer to communicate? And then, I mean, no, you can't be like, take your mouth guard out and be like, excuse me, I would really appreciate it if you moved over to the left just a little bit before. Great, thank you. Okay, now I'm set. Like, you don't have time to do that. But having that communication beforehand so it's clear language, or even I think like practice how you play, so you can talk like that and get used to that, and like work out during practice when the defense disagrees with you, to say, have that beforehand so it's not like in a game where they get upset. But I don't know if Jess has something to say about
Yeah, Jess, what do you think?
I think that could also be a lack of trust, or someone's having a bad day, right? It's really, with a group of girls, it's really easy to be catty with each other, right? But your job as a goalkeeper, you're the quarterback. You see the whole field, and they have to listen. And similar to exactly what Jess was saying, is you have to then have that conversation off the field. This happens a lot internationally. Like, we'll yell at each other, we'll get mad at each other, but we handle it off the field. But if you don't handle off the field, it's going to come back to on the field, right? People, you say you can let it go, but no, you need to handle the situation after the game so it doesn't lead into the next game or practice. And don't like hold a grudge against them. It happens. It's sports. Emotions are high. And especially as girls, like I said, we can be a little catty, and maybe, yeah, I might have been wrong and you were right. Okay, so I'll be better next time. So accepting if maybe your communication was wrong. But I think have that conversation, see if it's trust, or maybe they're just having a bad day.
And just a couple things that I would add in. Meet each other halfway. Like, it's also not fair to you for them to say, like, you need to talk to us this way either. Like, if you're going to make an adjustment, like, it doesn't necessarily need to be 100% to another side. Like, what works for both of you, that at the end of the day, like, we're trying to keep the ball out of the goal, right? And I 100% agree, Chrissy. I think the intensity and the demandingness of communication in training should be even higher than in a game. So the game, it's just all about us feeling confident and good, and we've got this because we've trained in such a demanding environment that then you don't need, there's no, at that point, it's too late to be making big adjustments. Sure, mark it up by all means, but like big structural things, skill and anything like that, it's too late once you're in the game. Like, feel good about where you're at.
Chrissy, if you don't mind, just very quickly, I know we're running short on time. I would also say, like, before a defensive corner is a great time to, like, if things are getting out of control, a great time to not just say it, but like look your defenders in the eye and be like, look, like, we've gotten to a point that's like a little like out of control. Like, let's bring it back down. Like, every defensive corner unit needs one of those people in some way, especially if you've had 9, 10, 11 corners in like the past 5 minutes. So being able to look people in the eye, I mean, like, look, I got you. Like, I got you. Like, we got this. I got you. You got me. Like, let's like pull it together and let's move forward. Like, that's a perfect opportunity to do that.
So, well, thank you so much for that. I'd also like to say, when I get a little snippy with my husband, he says, "Thank you for caring so much," which is which is a good way to let me know that I am being a little too much. So that's the one you can steal from me. But so the final one, which is a question which I think it'd be great for goal setting, and also we're going to have to wrap this up. Someone says, is it too late for a rising senior to get recruited? My short answer to them was no, but if we can give each of our college coaches, like, if you can give me 30 seconds on that, then we'll wrap it up for the day. We're going to go to Vic first.
No, it's not too late. Reach out. I'd say right now, the most important thing is like, just be in touch. I think a lot of times, and I feel it even sometimes as a coach, like, you don't really know what to say. And so you end up not saying anything at all. And that ends up being like the one thing that is going to hurt in the recruiting process. So yeah, nothing that you say is going to be wrong. Reach out to a coach if you're interested. You're interested in the school. Introduce yourself. Ask them about their process and where they're at. I don't think probably any, or at least very few, Division III schools are finished recruiting. Maybe some of the Division I's have just about wrapped up for 21 at this point. But if nothing else, you don't know unless you ask those specific coaches. So reach out, and there's absolutely a place that you can play.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, I would say, like, you never know until you ask. We're definitely, in obviously a shifted landscape for recruiting in general, but I'm assuming this is a current junior, rising senior, like, will be a senior in the fall. Yeah, I mean, to me, if there's a place for you that's a fit, like, there's 165 Division III schools, there's 30 Division II schools, Division I schools may be finished, but there are some that are not. There are some walk-on positions available. Like, you've got to find the school that's the right fit for you. So once you figure out what you're looking for academically, there are 100 and 200 plus institutions that are a possibility in terms of schooling. And then there's probably, obviously, after your, skill level might be narrowed down a bit, but you've got to reach out to people, because especially right now, I mean, there's no telling what the landscape for 2021s is going to look like. And for you, if you're passionate about an institution and you find a coach that's a fit, there's often, especially at the Division III level, there's probably space unless they're limited by certain things. If a person is the right fit as a human being and academically, more often than not, you're going to find a way to have that person be a part of your roster if you don't have limitations that are, put on you by admin or anything like that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. I think we could all probably sit and talk for another hour easily. Hi, Jess's girlfriend. So I just want to say thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you for all of our attendees. We will be emailing out a recording of this, and also our Play Beyond the Game goal setting. We really bring it down to trying to set a goal that's for a specific period of time, and works with different stuff. We have come up with something really fun that we are sad we can't give to you in person, but we're really excited you guys can do. Take it back to your teams. I'd also say, like, if you want to learn anything more about these panelists, we're going to follow up with an email with their information about their schools. Jess is doing some virtual training for goalkeepers. So all those goalkeepers with problems that you want to address, you can go have a FaceTime with Jess in her pads on your driveway. Next week, we have an awesome one for just coaches because we have a Division I coach on. And so that's one to send to your coaches. And that's going to be stuff they can do for your team now. Because I know we all miss our team. So it's about staying connected. And then the following week is going to be for parents. So a lot of us don't know how to play field hockey. My dad still doesn't understand why they blow the whistle so much. So it's a really great opportunity for you guys to connect with your kid. And we promise you, you don't have to learn all the rules to this sport. So thank you so much. I want to give a big round of applause to our panelists for doing a great job. We will follow up with all of our attendees, but thank you for coming. Keep hanging in there, guys. We really miss you, and we're happy we can connect with you through this platform. But I think I speak for all of us when we are very excited to see you on the field again.
Yes, thank you, everybody, and we hope to see you soon.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.